So this talk kind of serves as a warning. I just want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into if you're going to start using these. The wiring is non-trivial. I recommend using a breakout board. Each of these have 24 pins natively, and they need a lot of external circuitry. The slow refresh rate, because these it's an analog display basically. It's these little particles sloshing around in this oil. They can only move so fast physically. So this is an early version of an animation mode I was working on. You can see this is my nice clean black circle, which is becoming a blobby, smeary mess here, and it's leaving this kind of slime trail. That's because the voltage isn't being held for long enough to actually totally flip those pixels over to white. It's like the little particles are stuck in between the plates, right? And the big issue that I get the most questions about, it's actually really hard to get a nice, clean, precise image on these. Like after images in ghosting are a real thing. This is a calendar it's a clock I'm working on. And if you look carefully, you can see the ghost of the number 6 hanging out in back of the number 7. And this is, I did a refresh, and any pixels here that changed are nice and crisp. It's really dark black or bright white. Everything else drifts towards gray in this scenario. Like everything else on the screen is a little more gray. And it gets really exaggerated as you move through 306, 07, 08, 09, 10. It's like the whole thing just starts to look really cruddy and really bad. This is a real issue. If you want fast refreshes, this is going to be a big part of your life. You're going to be noodling around with this a lot, trying to get it right, and it's a big time suck. If you want to update the image on an EPD, you need to send it 5 waveforms, and a waveform is a series of discrete steps in voltage that get applied to the plates on opposite sides of the fluid where the particles are. And you need to provide it with these waveforms for if a pixel was black and it's going to stay black, B2B. If it was black and it's turning white, and of course, other waveforms for white to black and white to white. There is also this mysterious 5th waveform that you do have to provide called VCOM, which is a common voltage that is applied to the front plate, and that affects, it has an effect on the other 4 updates. EPDs, these panels come with built-in waveforms that are set by the factory, and if you've ever worked with these, you've probably seen this phenomena, which is a lot of blinking, and a lot of blinking, and a lot of blinking, unless you're using a custom waveform. And this sucks. This is it's unfortunate, but this is a limitation of the technology. And the reason they do this, it reduces ghosting and after images. It does give you a nice, strong image with good contrast. It prevents burn-in, which we're going to talk about later. That's a real thing. Things that you might not like about this is that it does make drawing very slow and kind of gross, right? It's like maybe not the best user experience. And the thing about waveforms, this surprised me. These are industry secrets. This is secret knowledge that they don't want you to have. Probably because they want you to use the built-in waveform because they want their panels to look good. They want nice crisp images at the end of each update. I actually wrote a company. If you look at the data sheets for any of these EPDs, you'll see that there are commands for updating waveforms, but they don't tell you what the format of the waveform lookup table is. It's like, it's not given. It's almost never given. And this data sheet, this one actually has a clue in it, which was really surprising. It's a structure of 6 bytes repeated 7 times, and that's actually a big clue. I wrote to one of these companies back in 2017, and I said, hey, I want to work with my own waveforms. I have some ideas I want to try. They sent me back an NDA, and they said, if you sign this, we'll let you in on the secret, and we'll tell you how it works, and you can never, ever, ever tell anyone ever. And I said, well, that's not good enough for me. So I went ahead and I reverse engineered it. And I posted this to Twitter in 2017, and I didn't make a big deal out of it, but I wanted to put together everything I figured out on one slide so that at the end of this slide, if you want to work with these, you can take a picture and you can get rolling with custom waveforms on APD and take advantage of all the cool things that you can actually do with them. So waveforms are stored as arrays of these structures, and each structure is 6 bytes long. Each 6-byte structure applies 4 discrete steps of a waveform. The first byte is where you choose your 4 voltages, and these are basically the colors that manifest if you hold that voltage for long enough. In this example here, 1, 0 applies a voltage that makes the pixel white, 0, 1 makes it black. Some boards do reverse that. The 0, 0 is the VCOM voltage that is not quite ground. You actually can set that voltage. There's a setting for it, and that changes the color contrast in some cases, so that's good to know. Bytes 1 through 4 are the duration that each step is applied, and this is in cycles, and cycles is based on a frame rate setting, which is another setting that you can send to the board. And the 5th byte is the number of times to repeat the entire structure. And once you know this, working with custom waveforms is very easy. Here's a quick example that I mocked up. In this one, it uses 2 voltages. Oh, sorry. It uses 2 voltages. So 0, 1 pulls it low. 1, 0 pulls it high. And then we don't care about the other 2 steps. We're just not using them. The low voltage is held for 1 cycle. The high voltage is held for 5 cycles. And it gets repeated 3 times. And this is it. This is the secret knowledge that they won't tell you. Pretty much every EPD I've worked with uses something very, very similar to this. This was a really exciting project. I've never reverse engineered anything before, and the big breakthrough was I had a gray smush on my panel, which was definitely not my image that I had sent over, right? But then the breakthrough was I set byte in a position 5. I set that to the number 7, and it smushed 7 times. It was big moment, and the whole thing came together after that. It was really fun. Yeah. Why would you want to use custom waveforms? You can do grayscale images. This is something that is not supported natively. Remember we mentioned the after images and ghosting. If you apply voltage for a shorter period of time, you do actually get a shade of gray, like the particles don't move all the way across. And there's a few different approaches to drawing a grayscale image, but the one that I liked was, it went like this: to draw the least significant bit first, and you work your way up to the most significant bit. You can have, I found that 4-bit grayscale looked fine. It was fine. You could go as high as you want, though. Each of these stages, it's also nice because if you figure out what the timing is, each stage you hold it for the same amount of time, and you get the same result every time. Yeah, and this, it works really well. I really like doing that. Also, the big one that I think is like the killer feature that people are always asking for, you can redraw without blinking the screen, and that makes these a lot, it's a better user experience. Like in some cases, you really do want this. Be aware, there are, it is called a partial refresh. A lot of people call this a partial refresh, right? One thing to notice here, look at all the, I'm gonna pause it, look at all the after images there, right? Like you can see the ghosts of the other circles that were drawn, and then like the weird, you know, kind of like intro image that flashed there. If your this will take some experimentation to get a nice clean a refresh if you want to draw something without any blinking or flashing. And we have to talk about burn-in, because this is a real thing. And I've had this conversation with at least 3 different people now who buy an EPD, they start using it, and they say, I got stuck pixels. What happened? This is, yeah, it's something to watch out for. What is probably happening here, go through your code, see what your custom waveforms are, especially the waveforms where the pixel isn't changing, and make sure that you're not applying more voltage to those pixels, because what's happening is those particles are in the proper position, like say that they're, you know, right against the glass, right? But you're mashing them with more voltage, right? Like you're shoving like get into the glass, right? And if you do that, you're basically making a crystal. These particles are becoming like a crystal structure, and they will get stuck, and they're not going to move. This board in the picture, this board was being updated. It's a clock, right, as you can tell, and it was being updated once a second. So every second, it was using waveforms that were shoving the white pixels, like the particles, into the glass over and over and over. And you can see there are some problems that manifested after a while. This is recoverable, but it might take a little while. If you want to repair this, write a script that blinks the screen solid colors like black, white, black, white, black, white. I would throw some checkerboards in there to facilitate sideways movement of particles. You're basically trying to lodge them out of their stuck positions and set them free. Be prepared to run this script for a week or more. It is a recoverable, and this board in the picture, it has been saved. I wish I had a picture of it now, but it can actually draw normal images again without any long-term burn-in. And in the future, a really good idea is to do a blinking refresh where you just flash the page like black white. Do that every 5 or 10 updates because it keeps the particles free and in motion, and that's actually really important. Yeah, so it's barely a display. Yeah, you have been warned. This is from the data sheet for that last panel. The last sentence here, each update interval time should be minimum at 180 seconds. So they only condone one redraw every 3 minutes. And this is actually pretty lenient. There are data sheets that say don't draw more than once an hour, don't draw more than once a day. They're pretty temperamental, and I feel like these are maybe not the best choice for a general purpose display. In some projects, these are great, but there are other options out there. We need to talk really quickly about the 3-color EPDs. These are pretty interesting. So what's going on here? This is black, red, and white. Is there a mysterious third charge at work? And again, industry secrecy. I had to kind of dig for this info and talk to some people. This is what I think is going on. Black and red have the same polarity. They have the same fundamental charge, but the red particles have different physical properties. They actually have more inertia. Like maybe they're physically larger or something like that, but it takes them longer to get moving. They can reach the speed that the black particles have, but they have kind of a slower start, right? And here's a picture from a e-ink patent that might confirm that. And we have to update our lookup tables for the waveforms. There is this 4th voltage you can apply on these color boards, which is a reduced a voltage of the same as for the black particles. And this, working with custom waveforms on these was the single most headache-inducing nightmare of the past 2 years working with EPDs, because it is such a weird thing to try to model in your head. If you want a red pixel, you have to execute waveforms that prepare, jockey around the positions of all the other particles so that when you finally apply voltage 1,1 there, the red particles race the black particles, and the red ones have to hit the glass first, and it's really hard to do. The next image will probably look weird because now the particles are not in good places for doing like another clean, fast update. This was a nightmare. This was horrible. So if you're working with the 3-color boards, this is one time where I would actually recommend just sticking with the built-in waveforms, because this will actually save you a lot of pain. You will be limited to 3 colors. This doesn't make grayscale or color gradients possible, but you will be able to use it. You'll have nice looking images every update. And if you use the built-in waveforms on these 3-color boards, there's going to be this other issue that I need to show you. And I'm going to play this video, and I am not kidding about the epilepsy warning here. This is a video of this little board right here. This is a 3-color, and it's black, white, and yellow. I want to show you what the built-in refresh looks like on this board. So we're going to start, I've got my image drawn on here, and I'm just going to click the play button. All right, so here comes the next image, right? Here we go. All right, you ready? You ready for this? Here it comes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, still going. Whoa, oh, what's happening? Okay, so shaking those particles around, right? Everybody's in motion. Oh, we're moving everyone to the correct, at the right place. Okay, so the black and white ones are set. It's kind of flashing in the yellow ones here. 25, 26, 27, 28. So it's literally about a 30-second refresh time. That's what comes with the board. That's kind of the only way to get a good, reliable 3-color image on this panel. It's one image every 30 seconds with a really, kind of shocking, transition on the way there. Yeah, it's 2019. I mean, we expect displays to update 60 times a second. We call that a 60 hertz refresh rate. What is this one? 0.04 hertz. I'm actually being generous. I rounded up there. And the little square form factor, I bought this. I was thinking, oh, I'm going to make a wristwatch for my partner. I'm going to be, the best boyfriend ever. Merry Christmas, honey. Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. So. So I started this open source project called FancyEPD. This got traction. It was really interesting watching people around the world use this. FancyEPD had a few goals. It was to fix all of the aforementioned problems, right? That was the long-term vision for these. I wanted to support a grayscale and color gradients on 3-color panels, and I wanted it to be easy. There was a whole web tool where you could upload an image. It would spit out a C code that you would copy paste into your project, and then you could just use it. It would just draw. I wanted kind of a crude animation mode just for things like you have a dialogue on the screen, you want to move it off sideways, that's fun, right? I wanted to support every single panel that I could get my hands on, which is a lot, and I somehow wanted fast and clean imagery on those 3-color panels. Like the 30-second refresh time was not acceptable. I wanted to take this down to 1 second with no blinking, ideally. And I really thought that I could do it. I reverse engineered how the waveforms work. I felt like I was the chosen one. Long story short, yeah, shut down last year. Yeah, it was interesting, but it turns out I shut this down for a few reasons. One reason is because I think a lot of what I wanted is actually physically impossible. Like, you can't do it. You really can't do it, especially color gradients on those 3-color panels. And whew, very hard to debug. There was no sort of transparency. If a pixel ended up the wrong color, I didn't really have a tool to look inside and see where the particles were, or try to figure out what was going on, or like which command did I send over wrong. Time vampire. Blah. Lot of time went into this, a lot of fascinating puzzles and trying to get better and better imagery, but it was just a huge time suck. It's like all that time where I could have actually been making money or giving back to the community or doing anything else. It's basically gone. We're spoiled. We expect pixels to display the correct color immediately. This is not that, okay? And as creators, we have a sense of how much time and energy a project needs to feel refined, and I knew that it was going to take a lot of time to bring this to a point where I could sign off on it and say, hey, here's version 1.0. This is useful for a lot of people. It looks really good. It's really fast. You're going to love it. And it was just clear that it was like trying to, it was a moving target that could never be hit. So I gave up on that. All right, so end of Act 1. Wow, kind of dark, right? Kind of sad, Yeah, so that's a big info dump about EPDs, but we're not done here because they're not the only game in town. There are other technologies that have some of the qualities of the EPD that still qualify as e-paper, and I want to go through these really quickly. There's a couple that are really interesting. Some of them you've probably seen. Transflective LCDs. This is the one laptop per child. Do you remember this in 2008? It's the laptop with the hand crank, right? Actually had a really interesting display. It had an RGB backlight when you were indoors, and then in sunlight, the sunlight would be bright enough to wash that out, and you would see a grayscale version of the same image. And that was kind of interesting. You can find sunlight readable LCDs everywhere. It's just do a search there on Adafruit, they're everywhere. reflective displays, two that are kind of interesting. If you need a low power device, look up the Sharp memory LCDs. The data sheet for this one claims it's about 12 microwatts to sustain the image once it's on the screen. So it's not a zero power device, it's not bistable, but it's good, right? It's really close. There's another company that is making waves right now called Clear Ink. They have a new EPD cocktail of some sort, and they are apparently getting 60 frames per second video. And I've seen videos of this. They have a color layer on top of that, and it's looking really good. This actually looks like real innovation. I don't believe they have released dev kits yet, but I look forward to getting mine. And then we have to talk about a couple weird ones. I have to talk about butterflies. Okay, I don't have time to explain all of this. Wikipedia.org/structural coloration, fascinating article. Little structures can interfere with light. They can interfere with the color and with the phase.
Same mechanism as a compact disc with its rainbow.
Yeah, that is it's called a diffraction grating, I believe. Yeah. Wikipedia.org/diffraction grating. Yeah, and these are two pictures of a blue morpho butterfly. The one on the right is taken with a scanning electron microscope. The wings are pigmented brown, but they appear blue due to the distances in these little notches and the little fern-like structures there, which are about 480 nanometers, which is about the wavelength of blue cyan light. This is, I love this. I live for this. This is so good. Would you believe that human beings have been manufacturing devices with microstructures since at least 2010? Here's one, the interferometric modulator display. This is the iMod display. This is an optically resonant cavity. When it's in the open state, it opens to a specific height. It's two translucent mirrors, and it reinforces light at a certain wavelength, at a certain color. The company doing this was Mirasol. They got bought by larger companies, and they put out a few products, including this watch right here. It's always on sunlight readable color. You know, we've had color e-paper since 2013. This is good. It doesn't have blinking. This is a 30 frames per second display. So you're all ready to get your hands on Mirasol dev kits, right? Make some cool stuff. Well, they're dead. Yeah. They have been taken over by Apple and turned into something else. But maybe there are other physical effects that we can use to make interesting displays. Like here's one, using microfluidics, there's this concept, electrowetting, and when you apply a charge to a little oil blob, it goes bloop, and it spreads out, and it covers more surface area, and when you apply the opposite charge, it goes slurp, and it returns to a little round blob. The company making these was called Liquavista, and things were looking pretty good for them. They have 15 frames per second video, beautiful color, just like, things were looking pretty good. They got bought by Amazon. There's gonna be color Kindles, and if you go to Amazon right now, there are Liquavista dev kits that you can buy. Just kidding, they're dead too. Yeah, so this is another amazing technology that we're not gonna have. What other e-paper technologies are out there? I love this slide so much, I didn't want to take it out. The energy apocalypse is coming, so invent something. The best e-paper display hasn't been invented yet. Okay, the point of this slide is that when you ask people what they dislike about the devices they have now, people complain about battery life. Instead of addressing the biggest power suck in, say, our phones, which is typically the display, we're getting phones that are consistently brighter with weirder, more surreal, better than real life colors, right? And there aren't any, I'm not aware of any phones that have good color e-paper displays, but I would jump on that if I had access to that. I would love something like that. And wow, that was a pretty intense slide. So here's something I'm just gonna leave you with one final idea here. This is a display, it's made with falling water. It's 1 bit, a pixel is either wet or dry. What even is a display? And I think this is interesting. Think about physical effects that could be used to make interesting displays, and potentially, very low power ones that could even be portable. Because I think if you can do that, you can have a very profound impact on the world and change a lot of our relationship with technology. And my name is Zach Archer. I'm a freelance developer. I am known for my graphics. I'm more of a front-end generalist, and if you like what you see and you have a project that you think I would be a good fit for, I would love to hear from you. So thank you.
There are no time for questions, but the all-hands meeting is starting downstairs in the Media Tech room. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Zach Archer. Woo!